Our next presentation is going to be on AOC Modernization, and I will hand it off to Tim Winter.
So while we're queuing up, good morning, and again, happy Valentine's Day also. We're going to do a two-part presentation. My name is Tim Winter, and I am the Vice President of Business Development, Engineering, and Technology for the Defensive Systems Division. And what that means is we sell basically communications and command and control, C3. So I've been in the industry for 31 years. Worked primarily in the sensor world, and then most recently have transferred over to the C3 side of the business. Our division works on some of the common processing and the replace technology, so we're really pleased for this program, the AOC Modernization, to follow the B2 presentation because they're very related and very connected. With that, I'd like to introduce Rob Evans, a retired warfighter, just joined Northrop Grumman, and he's going to initiate the presentation.
Good morning. I'm thrilled that you chose to spend part of your Valentine's Day with us this morning to learn about affordable innovation from Northrop Grumman. And as Tim said, I retired from the Air Force last September after 28 years in uniform. I spent the early part of my career flying airplanes, F-15E and F-111, and later part of my career in air operations centers. And so I served in leadership positions in air operations centers in Germany, Korea, and the Middle East. And very, very excited to be able to continue with Northrop Grumman in advancing for our warfighters this critical command and control capability. Next slide, please. A former Secretary of the Air Force at a defense writers' breakfast, probably not unlike this one, was asked, what is the Air Force's most valuable weapon system in the war on terrorism? And he said the Air Operations Center, and that surprised a lot of people. Why is the Air Operations Center the most valuable weapon system? And what is the Air Operations Center? The Air Operations Center is where it all comes together. You know, it's critical in especially modern warfare, in contested environments, anti-access, area denial, that we synchronize effects, that we integrate capabilities, not just air capabilities, but air, land, sea, increasingly cyber capabilities are blended and integrated and synchronized to bring the maximum effect. It's critical. For the air component, that happens in the Air Operations Center. The Air Operations Center is a senior command node where a Joint Force Air Component Commander brings together the strategy to support joint commanders, to support other component commanders, develops the plans, allocates the weapons and the targets. You know, we just talked about the B2 and flexible options for the B2, a rotary launcher in one bay and a smart bomb rack in the other bay. Why would we carry such a mix? What would be the purpose? These kinds of decisions are made in the Air Operations Center. It's a critical capability for our Air Force, and modernizing the Air Operations Center is how we unlock the enormous capabilities of a modern air and space force equipped with the B-2, equipped with the F-22, soon the F-35. This is how we orchestrate those capabilities. Next slide.
So I'm going to go through the program capabilities and the program schedule, so we'll talk about the timing. The capabilities, you'll see three major bullets here, one on the common computing infrastructure, if you will, the hardware, but secondarily the mission applications, the architecture that we're bringing, and then finally the keyword affordability. Speaking of the common computing environment, if you can imagine, you know, there are dozens of AOCs out there around the world that we have a lot of people in them, servicemen working and women working them. And they were built a lot of times back in the 90s with technologies that have different processors. We talked earlier about the 286. There's a lot of older processors, software. They kind of maybe brought forward over the past 2 decades. And what this program, AOC 10.2 Modernization, is doing is it's bringing a common architecture. It's really a transformational capability where we can have, I'll say, the new architecture of, you know, the 2010 timeframe, bringing an open, extensible architecture that allows you to bring new applications in on a regular basis. So first of all, you come up with some of this advanced computing architecture that's networked very quick together that allows you to bring new computers in. We have a technology or a concept we call MOSA-C, Modular Open Systems Approach - Competitive. It allows us to be able to write open standards so that we can use an IBM or a Sun. We can use different routers. So we bring competition down to the computer level. In the past, usually you've given contracts out and those computers have been in there forever. So now we can change the computers out. Secondarily, we can bring new applications quickly to the table. As we all know, we all have our iPhones or our BlackBerries, our iPads. The applications are where a lot of the critical capability. Our young warfighters, we were having a conversation at the table this morning, our young warfighters that are going to be manning and staffing these AOCs, they're used to turning on a piece of equipment and not going through a manual. It automatically starts up. It's a user manual. So the capabilities that we can bring here are user interface, quick turn on, applications that work with each other. Information is transferred back and forth between the applications. And again, to be able to actually make the AOC functional and efficient for our young warfighters that are coming forward. Next chart, please. Here is the schedule. We a lot of times talk about timing. Today, we're going to be releasing a press release that talks about our very successful PDR that occurred in December, ahead of schedule. I thought Dave said it well, execute, execute, execute. I'm a program manager from days back for 30-some years, and you have to execute, especially in today's environment. So we are ahead of schedule for the PDR. We're on track with budget, and we have had a very successful meeting of the minds with the Air Force. We've got our preliminary design agreed to, and now we're off toward detailed design. The next milestone you can see in the second quarter of this year is milestone B. Very, very important milestone for everything to go forward. Today's environment's obviously very questionable going forward, all the different activities, but for the most part, this program, which is a very modest program, is doing quite well, and as was mentioned before, has tremendous support, not just in the Air Force leadership, but also in the joint services. One of the things I didn't mention on the previous chart is this program was, you know, it's Air Force oriented, but it's born joint. A lot of the same technology that we use in AOC was also developed in our Army IBCS program and in our Navy CANES program. So we're bringing open architecture extensibility across the board. As you can see, the EMD phase is really big for us getting started, which would eventually lead to an IOC in 2015. Next chart, please. One of the things that we did at the PDR was we confirmed that our approach satisfies the critical measures that the AOC is being architected around. These 11 critical measures have been agreed to, been working for, and the delta improvements over the current approach is there. So now I'm going to turn it over from a technical standpoint to Rob to go through some of the examples for these critical measures and the benefits.
So performance, affordability, and innovation is our theme today, and that's critically important, but it's also critically important that we deliver warfighting capabilities that our nation needs. Because the cost of failure is too high. In an air operations center, the inability to strike the correct targets, the inability to get the maximum capability out of the assets that we have available, we simply cannot pay that price. So in the same way that the F-15E improved upon the mighty F-4 in virtually every way, including a parking brake, seems obvious, but the AOC we're building today, this modernized AOC, improves the legacy AOC, which, like the F-4, has served us well in previous conflicts. We improve it in virtually every way that is meaningful. So when I look at this chart and around the periphery of the chart, you see individual elements that have been improved. It's, to me, the combination of these elements that bring the real value. So, for example, alerting services, workflow, and collaboration. I'll just pick those three for an example. In an AOC today, on a combat operations floor, there might be 100 or so personnel from all services, from nations involved in the operation, and you would find it noisy. People would be up out of their chairs, they'd be passing notes, you'd see yellow stickies, no doubt, on the monitors. You might see somebody stand up and alert the floor that there's been a critical event. An aircraft is down. We've detected a time-sensitive target that must be struck now, and it's almost a chaotic environment. When we brought data links, when I say we, when the defense industry and the services brought data links into fighter aircraft, it suddenly became very quiet in the cockpit, because without data links, there was this constant chatter to share and communicate the picture that individually a pilot might have on his radar, but somebody else didn't. When data links came into the fight, suddenly that was quiet because the information was shared. It's the same kind of analogy in this Air Operations Center. So common alerting, when a significant event occurs, everybody who has a stake in that event either needs to know or needs to make a decision is alerted. In some cases, their displays can actually be configured to change to the correct displays to present the information that they need. They don't have to even do it manually. The workflows are automatically populated, smart workflows, and collaboration begins. Information is passed from machine to machine, which reduces the chance for human error, eliminates yellow stickies. Next slide. You know, there was a time, not long ago in fact, when our ability to strike targets that emerged on the battlefield was extremely limited. So an Air Operations Center might be measured by how many sorties it could task, how many lines on an air tasking order directing aircraft to take off and hit specific targets. The measure was one of quantity. Because frankly, we didn't have the ability to sense targets on the battle space. And if we could find a new target, our ability to communicate that target to an aircraft or a weapons system in a way that they could now replan their mission and strike that target was extraordinarily limited. Fast forward to today. Dave, what was it, 80 independently targeted JDAMs in a B2? Is Dave still here? Think about the capability we have today. We have airplanes that can collect an entire NFL's season worth of video in a single sortie. We have overhead assets. Our ability to sense the battle space is extraordinary. Our ability to retarget weapons, 80 in a B2. Now we talk about net-enabled weapons, network-enabled weapons, targeted after they're launched, retargeted. How does that all come together? And it comes together in a modernized AOC. So the AOC today, the AOC that we're building for the Air Force, is not one that is measured by how many sorties it can task, but by what can we do in dynamic execution. How can we take advantage of the intelligence data? How can we take advantage of our ability to sense the battle space? How can we take advantage of these smart capabilities our weapons have in a way that shortens the conflict, brings success at a lower cost, faster speed? That's what a modernized AOC provides. Increased combat capability and operational flexibility so that we can array our forces and array our scheme of command and control in the way that makes the most sense, not in the way that we have to. You can consider maybe the Maginot Line, fixed fortifications. You defend on the Maginot Line, maybe not because that's where the enemy attacks, but because that's where you built your defenses. You were limited by decisions you made in the past. A modernized AOC gives you incredible flexibility so that you're no longer limited. And importantly, lower operating costs. Not only lower operating costs, but more affordable and rapid innovation. Can I have the next slide, please? You know, there was a time when military technology, and you know this all too well, military technology led the civil sector. The most advanced communications were in the military before they were in the civil sector. And somewhere along the line, that changed, didn't it? And so today, many of our legacy systems are a generation behind in terms of their technology. We're going to change that paradigm with a modernized AOC. So that very lethargic acquisition cycle, the time required to bring new capabilities to the warfighter is slashed. So we have a developer's application environment, for example, that allows individuals to write applications for this modernized AOC infrastructure in the same way you might write an application for an Android phone or an iPhone. We call it innovation at the speed of need. When the warfighter needs a new capability, it can be integrated rapidly and affordably. Increased speed of command, reduced chance of human error. Next slide.
So as you can see, Rob is a little bit passionate about the AOC. I think the modernized AOC, it's a tremendous advantage to have someone like Rob on our team who can drive industry. We've got, you know, a lot of IT experts, a lot of computer experts, some software experts, but to actually bring it forward right now at the time that we're in, to bring this modernization to the AOC, again, a very modest program that has tremendous capability. We think it's one of the most critical programs that the United States Air Force is currently employing. We didn't mention the word cyber. It was on one of the charts. I said born joint early. If I had to say, what's the one things that we continually look to grow and make sure is happening with this AOC is that it is cyber hardened from the beginning. It is born cyber hardened, and that is really the power that Northrop Grumman is bringing. That also, in addition to everything we've mentioned before, revolutionizes the AOC Modernization program and makes sure that it's very required in today's market. You can see the operational cost, the increased flexibility, and the increased combat capability. So I think that's where that's our presentation. Any questions?
Courtney Albin, Inside the Air Force. You mentioned the PDR process as a successful process. Can you talk about some of the feedback that you had from the Air Force during that process, maybe some of the issues that were raised and addressed during that review?
Actually, like I said before, it was very, very successful. I think the program went through its PDR. The actions were very minor. No critical issues from my knowledge. I wasn't personally at the PDR itself, but we were clear to go toward detailed design. Our program is proceeding. We delivered. In that schedule, there were some various prototypes that were delivered along the way. So the good news about today's development environment, is most of the time you don't have prototype units until maybe you're at CDR, but in this case we've been incrementally delivering various pieces. So I think probably the most significant feedback was the perceived low risk due to the delivery of selected components, various iterations of the prototypes.
And we talked a little bit about this over breakfast, but we use a concept called mission thread with our customer, where rather than defining specifically the interfaces of systems and the data flows and so on, we put it in an operational context. And that allows the engineers and designers to develop a system with an eye towards how it will be used operationally, which I think is critical. And so one of the mission threads that was utilized and demonstrated in the PDR was dynamic targeting. And I mentioned time-sensitive targeting earlier, which is a specific category of dynamic targeting. And it goes to that ability to react rapidly to changes in the battle space. And so that mission thread was played out in our PDR, and it received very rave reviews.
Aaron Mehta with Defense News. Just quickly, if everything's on budget and on schedule, is there concern that with potential budget cuts just operating under the CR for the rest of this year, that the program's going to be pushed back or go over budget?
Not for this program. I mean, I think across the board, we're not really commenting on most programs, but this program we have a lot of confidence in. It's under contract. We're moving forward. We don't really see any issues. You never know, but right now this program is moving at a very solid pace. And again, CDR at the end of this year, so we don't necessarily see any issues. Okay. Well, thank you very much. Appreciate your time this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, gentlemen.